Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving deep into one of psychology's most powerful lenses, the biological perspective. We're going to figure out why our own bodies and brains are really the masterminds behind pretty much everything we think, feel, and do. So let's just jump right in with a question I think we can all relate to. Why does a broken heart physically hurt? You know that ache you get in your chest? Well, it turns out it's not just in your head. It is a real physical feeling. And, unpacking questions exactly like this one is what the biological perspective in psychology is all about. To really get to the bottom of a feeling like that, we have to kind of pop the hood and look at the biology behind you. All the complex wiring and the chemical reactions that are shaping everything you think, feel, and do, every single second. And this lens, the biological perspective, it helps us understand psychological issues by zeroing in on the physical stuff, the basis for our behavior. The core idea is simple. To understand the mind, you first have to understand the brain and the body that's attached to. So what is this perspective really? Let's take a closer look at the blueprint of our biological selves. Okay, so at its heart, the biological perspective, and you might hear it called biopsychology, makes a pretty bold claim that everything psychological is first physiological. It zooms right in on our brain, our genes, our nervous system to find the physical roots of why we do what we do. And this, of course, drops us right into one of the biggest debates in all of psychology, nature versus nurture. Are we who we are because of our genes or because of our experiences? Well, the biological perspective definitely puts a heavy emphasis on nature. It really stresses that our genetic inheritance is this powerful foundational force in shaping who we ultimately become. And, this idea isn't new, not at all. The study of our physiology has actually been a core part of psychology since the very beginning. In fact, we can trace its modern roots all the way back to Charles Darwin, who was the first to really introduce the idea that our evolution and our genetics play a huge role in our behavior. And here is the key takeaway from Darwin's work, his theory of natural selection. It basically suggests that any behaviors that help us survive are more likely to get passed down through our genes. So if a certain trait gives an organism an edge, well, it's probably going to stick around for the next generation. Okay, so theory is one thing, but how does this actually work in the real world? Let's take a look inside and see this perspective in action. Let's use a really complex issue like aggression as a case study. I mean, it's something we all see, but what causes it? Well, psychology has a lot of different answers to that question. Now, this is where it gets really interesting when you see how the views break down. A psychoanalytic perspective, for example, might point to some unconscious urge from your childhood. A behavioral psychologist would look at how aggression was maybe learned and reinforced. But the biological viewpoint, it goes straight to the hardware. It asks, could a brain injury be the cause? Or maybe there are genetic factors at play. It's a totally different way of asking the question. And aggression is just one piece of the puzzle. Biopsychologists look into a huge range of things. They analyze how brain trauma changes someone's behavior. They study twins to try and untangle what's genetic versus what's environmental. And they explore how diseases like Alzheimer's can fundamentally impact who we are. Now, a massive reason this field has just exploded in recent years is technology. I mean, for the first time in human history, we don't just have to guess what the brain is doing, we can actually watch it work in real time. And this is how it's done. We have these incredible tools now, like PET scans and fMRIs, that let scientists see which parts of the brain light up when we feel love, or make a tough decision, or even just remember a name. This lets them connect specific brain areas to really complex behaviors. It's amazing. But like any powerful tool, this perspective has its strengths and it has its blind spots, and it's really crucial to understand both. Let's start with the strengths. First off, it is highly scientific. Researchers use these strict empirical methods, which makes the results really reliable and valid. And that scientific approach has led to some incredible real-world applications, like medications that can treat depression and anxiety because they target brain chemistry and get to the underlying biological causes. But, and this is a big but, there are pitfalls. The biggest weakness of this approach is that it can sometimes fail to account for other massive influences on our behavior. Things like our childhood experiences, social pressures, the culture we grow up in. The point is, biology isn't the whole story. And that brings us right to our key takeaway here. It's really best to think of this perspective as just one very important piece of a much, much larger puzzle. So here's the big picture. Our biology is the foundation, but it doesn't build the whole house. Our life experiences, our culture, our social environment, they all build the rest of the structure. So to truly understand who we are, we have to see how our nature and our nurture work together. The biological approach is an absolutely vital starting point, but it's never the final word. And that leaves us with a final thought to mull over. If your biology is just the first chapter in your book, what people, what places, and what experiences have written all the rest of your story? Thanks for joining us on The Explainer.